Hello again. I'm keen to get on with the my videos of this book, The Empire of Normality by Robert Chapman, and very good book, excellent. So I'm going to have to, either you're going to have to see my awful eye, or because I can't see very well when I'm closing it, but I'm discussing today from the book. There's much more in the book, but I'm going to be either directly quoting or paraphrasing here. So Chapman, today I wanted to talk a bit about eugenics, psychiatry, and the rise of antipsychiatry, and I'm not following his chapters faithfully. I'm doing it a bit differently than the way he has in the book, but you will get much more out of it if you read the book. But anyway, I read about Kreplin, who when I was about 15 or 16, although I only ever seen it written down, so I may be pronouncing it wrong, but he is known as the father of psychiatry, and he claimed that an ever-widening stream of inferior stock was mixing itself with our offspring, contributing to the deterioration of the race. Kreplin divided up mental disorders into different kinds and levels of subnormal functioning, with a focus on heredity, severity, development and outcome. This approach was adopted in German psychiatry, which was very much a world leader in the psychiatry of the time, thus allowing a growing number of new classifications to be specified, studied and controlled. Eugene Bleuler, again, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, I've seen it written down many times, but he was known for coining the term schizophrenia and autism. Well, I knew that he coined the term schizophrenia, but not autism. But in his 1924 textbook of psychiatry, he openly stated his view that the more severely burdened should not propagate themselves in case the race would rapidly deteriorate. Many on the left came to embrace Galton's ideals, e.g. Sidney Webb, Bertrand Russell and Marie Stopes. Plus eugenic ideas were adopted in the Soviet Union. There was also post-war segregation in Britain's education system. Cyril Burt was also a eugenicist, suggesting intelligence was innate. The Nazi development and implementation of eugenics could be seen on an industrial scale. Those unable to conform to Nazi racial and economic requirements, and those whose minds and bodies fell outside the norm, were seen as parasites to be eliminated. The Nazi Party began implementing authoritarian eugenic laws and policies, including compulsory sterilization for thousands of neurodivergent people, including those diagnosed with schizophrenia and cognitive disabilities, taken to be scientifically legitimized through Galtonian research methods, helped justify how mentally ill and intellectually disabled people were in many cases murdered alongside Jews and other targets of Nazi eugenic policy. That's, I think, probably a quote from Chapman's book. In Nazi-occupied Austria, autism was coined as a diagnosis. Bleuler had only meant it to be coined as a temporary symptom of schizophrenia. It was only under Nazi rule, in the work of Hans Asperger in the 1930s and 40s, that those who came to be called autistic were singled out as having a unique way of being. Hans Asperger and other medics began dividing autistics up into those deemed to have potential worth to the Third Reich, given their purportedly strong logical capacities, and those who were to be sterilized or killed, along with countless other mad and disabled targets. Now, I didn't know that autism was coined in Austria, and I don't know whether that was a connection with Nazism or not, but I know that Asperger's syndrome, the name Asperger's, is now being dropped because of its associations with Nazism, so I'm not sure autism, should that be? I don't know. Anyway, in summary, there was a move from equilibrium to normal state conceptions of health, and the Galtonian fusing of Darwin and normality to begin ranking populations. Walker, that's Nick Walker, who's Chapman mentions a lot, and she's a female Nick, describes the pathology paradigm as being the place where the neurotypical mind became enthroned as the normal ideal against which all other types of mind are measured. Chapman is not claiming that eugenic theory is synonymous with the pathology paradigm theory. The pathology paradigm, which he mentions a lot in the book, does not necessarily commit to the idea that the race or species can be improved at the group level, only that we rank populations in terms of mental abilities and that higher in the ranking is more desirable. Following the Allied victory, many eugenics professors and researchers became geneticists, where the focus was still on eliminating abnormalities in individual medical problems rather than issues of race. Now, I'll mention a bit about the antipsychiatry here, but I'll probably go on and do that more in the next one. But Sass, that's Thomas Sass, S-Z-A-S-Z, was a name I did come across a lot, or a bit, when I studied psychology. He influenced the anti-psychiatry movement and challenged psychiatric pathologization in the 1960s and 70s. Now, other anti-psychiatry figures, including R.D. Laing and Goffman, describe diagnoses as labels. Now, I did come across R.D. Laing, well, even before I did my degree, probably in my teens, I was reading The Divided Self. I read it several times. That's R.D. Laing. And I don't know Goffman. Maybe I do, but I just can't think. It's not registering at the moment. But there was also David Cooper. I remember I did a seminar, and presented it of his book. I think it was called The Death of the Family. So they were very current. I don't know if people, anyway, what the psychology degree curriculum is like these days, but both Sass and Freud were influential for countercultural movements in the late 1960s. Kraepelin biological psychiatry was seen as tainted following increased awareness of the Holocaust, but Freud's work wasn't tainted by association with Nazism. To some extent, Freud did briefly bring back aspects of equilibrium in relation to mental health. He outlined the upset equilibrium between conscious and unconscious drives, leading to internal disharmony. Now, that's very interesting about Freud, because obviously anybody who studied psychology, I did it at A-level and degree, and Freud was obviously very, I don't know whether today they put so much emphasis, but obviously the history of that, and studying the ego, the superego, and the disharmony and defense mechanisms and all that was very central or prevalent when I learned. So but it's very interesting that Freud wasn't part of that group of he did try and look at the health as to do with harmony, which which I mentioned in the last one. Chapman mentioned in his first chapter. Anyway, that's long enough now. I think I will leave the next part for another video. So thank you for listening, and apologies if my eye is too horrible, but I've just got to wait. I'm trying to hide it behind glasses, but there you go.